This might be one of the most underrated, under-reviewed, and most unique track saws on the market. It has a very special feature that I've not seen on any other saw. Let's go. If you'd like to check this saw out or anything else I talk about in this video, there'll be a link in the description and the pinned comment, or you can shop here on YouTube. I'm green with envy on this one, y'all. Come on. Before we unbox this, I show you the features and we put it through the test to see how this is going to perform. I've got a ton of requests from you to review this. If you got tool requests, drop them in the comments. So when I went to buy this saw, and yes, I bought it with my own money, I was looking for reviews, written reviews on retailer websites, and I can only find like 7 or 8 total written reviews. And all of them were 5 stars. All of them. And I thought, why do people love this saw so much? Out of the very few that's reviewed it, I think we're fixing to find out. Let's go. First, I love that we have a box. It's a proper storage container. This is exactly like the Makita. If you saw that review, the Makita comes in a box just like this, just a different color, just a different logo on there, but the box is essentially the same. Mine did have a little bit of damage on the front corner, I assume probably during shipping, but it's not a huge deal. Now inside the box you do get this little filler piece of plastic thing that kind of keeps everything from jostling around. And then you have the saw, the charger, and 1 battery. And of course, the owner's manual. Shut up. No, I'm kidding, I'll read it. Read your manual. It's fairly lightweight, it's kind of surprising. This, just like the Makita, has that plastic insert in there. I'm not really a huge fan of that. I think that you could do some type of foam molding like the Milwaukee Packout has with their track saw, as well as the Festool has with their track saw. It's just more secure, especially if you're transporting these. It gives you a little buffer in case it falls or drops or anything like that. They did put a little bit of foam in the top there. I don't think the Makita had that, did it? First impressions out of the box, I do like this. I like it quite a bit. Just the overall look of it, as well as how it fits in the hand, how it feels like a nice tool. It does feel slightly lighter than maybe the Milwaukee or the Festool. I have to check that. But overall, I think it feels like a well-made tool, which it should be for this price point. Before we put it through the paces and I show you the very unique feature that nobody else has, let's go over the features of this saw and let me show you everything that is on board here. First and foremost, you get 2 3/5 of an inch. Who uses that? It's on the box of depth of cut here. In other words, 66 millimeters, if you're into that sort of thing, which I'm not. On track, I think it's like 2 7/16 of an inch, which is great. There's plenty of depth of cut there. That's very similar to, say, Festool or the Milwaukee. This is a variable speed saw, as you can see here, this little knob on the back from 1 to 12, which will give you 2,500 to 5,200 RPMs. You get a 3-year battery warranty, a 1-year charger warranty for whatever reason, and a lifetime warranty on the tool, which is always awesome. Spins up really good, nice powerful sounding motor, and it does stop rather quickly. It even says on the box, quick braking. It does stop fairly quick, which is always an added bonus. So for the features of this saw, we'll get the main thing out of the way first. The depth stop on this is absolutely awesome. I'm telling you, it is equal to the Festool or the Milwaukee, which are my 2 favorite depth adjustments. You literally just push that little button on top, slide it where you want it, and let go. I don't care for that single pole style like the Makita has, although the Makita works well, or the Win or some of the other budget brands, that little single thing just sticks too much. It doesn't slide smooth. This is smooth as butter. Slick as owl snot. It just slides well. And on the depth stop adjustments, you've got GR, which means guide rail. That's the depth you're going to be cutting on the guide rail. And then that one is off the guide rail, so you can use this as a standard saw. And blade change on here is super simple. You just line up your depth stop to that red indicator on that scale where the blades are, flip this little switch down, and then plunge it, and it locks it into place so that the arbor is in the right spot for you to get to so that you can actually change the blade. And it locks the trigger, so if you do accidentally leave it with the battery on there, it won't activate the saw. I love that feature. You should take the battery out, but if you forget, there is that safety feature built in, so long as it's in this locked position. And as far as just actuating the saw, plunging it down, everything is just super, super smooth. One thing I did notice immediately out of the box was the fact that it does not have a riving knife. I like having riving knives on my track saws, but the Makita didn't have it, and I didn't have any issues with that. So I don't know if it's even an issue. I just like peace of mind, I guess. This will bevel up to 47 degrees should you need to do bevel cuts with this, and the bevel depth is pretty good on here. I don't know why they did it this way. You get 1.7 of an inch, according to the box, of depth cut on a 45-degree cut, or about 43 millimeters if you're into that sort of thing. I am not into millimeters, that is. Now there is a hard stop at 45 degrees, which is what is in most cases. Now if you're looking at the bevel adjustment and you need to go below 0 or over 45 up to 47, there's a push button right there that will allow it to drop down to -1. And then of course when you get to the 45, push that button there. 47 on the scale, but you can only go to 46. When you go back to 0, make sure it's at 0. In other words, what you're going to do is you're going to tighten this down. I wish these knobs were better. It almost feels like you can over tighten them and break it. I get that feeling, so snug is good. I like to take my square, make sure the battery's out, plunge this to full depth, and then check this for square and make sure that this is square before you start cutting, or you'll have issues, like we'll see in a minute. The depth cut also has a micro adjustment knob right there on top, so you can dial in the exact right depth that you need. I know there's a lot of times when you want to plunge cut something and you need it to go to the perfect depth. That's going to allow you to do that. One thing I appreciate on this saw is the letters, the numbers, all the markings are big and bold. If I'm getting older, and even if you're young, at a glance you could just see those numbers. It's very clear. I like that. And the indicators and everything are really precise, like the little bevel indicator, the depth stop indicator. You know exactly where you're at on that scale at all times. That's much appreciated here. The base of this saw I like. It's a nice wide footprint, and it's very similar to the Makita where you can buy an edge guide that goes in on those 2 holes there. There's 2 little tabs here that will let that loose, and then you can snug it up in there. That attaches or holds that edge guide where you need it. I like having that. It's a good option, especially if you're just making rip cuts of the same width. Super fast, that's a good option to have, and you can buy that as an add-on. The base adjustment for the track is very, very cool. I've not seen this done before. Check this out. There's a knob on the top. When you set this on the track, you're going to twist this knob to snug it up. You don't want it tight so that it doesn't move, but you also don't want it wiggling on you. What you want is just a nice smooth transition there. And this little knob, as you turn it, it pulls both of these front and back adjustments at the same time. Nobody else does that. This is a unique feature, but it's not the unique feature that sets this apart. Although I do really, really like that idea. As far as dust collection goes, we do have this dust port on the back that does swivel, and my Festool dust extractor hose fits right in there, which is perfect. I always appreciate when the dust extractor hose fits. I know not everybody has the Festool dust extractor, but it's a nice thing because most of these should fit, right? Should. And speaking of tracks and adjustments, it will fit on standard tracks. Thank you, Metabo. This will fit on the Milwaukee, the Festool, and it will fit on PowerTech, Makita, Metabo brand tracks, Wind tracks. All of those are in the same track design, which is great. I am glad they went with a standard base on here, unlike Ryobi and Rigid who went with their own thing. Craig, they got their own standard tracks that only they can use. I like that we can swap these out. That's going to save you some money, so if you want to pick up a set of PowerTech tracks with this saw, they're going to work together. Overall, I think the build quality and the feature set that you get in this saw at this price point, even at a higher price point, this is excellent. Excellent package that you're getting here. The features on this are equal to the Festool or the Milwaukee, hands down, for about $200, sometimes $300 and $400 less, depending on what model you're going for on those other ones. It's a solid deal here so far, but we got to see how it performs, which is next. First thing I like to cut is a sheet of plywood because that's what most people will use this for most of the time. Now cutting through this plywood, obviously no issues there, and the dust collection was pretty good. I've got it connected to my Festool dust extractor. Not amazing, but good. I think if it had a dust port cover, it would work. Now I did stop and drop down this splinter guard because I forgot. That seemed to help a little bit with dust collection, but that will also help with splintering or fraying if you're cutting like sheet goods. And I did cut this piece of plywood across the grain, and as you can see, it's pretty good. Like there's very, 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 very minimal, if any, tear out, maybe a little there. One thing to note is that this track is set to fit my Milwaukee saw, which is about half a millimeter in. I don't use millimeters, but I do now. Half a millimeter gap between the actual splinter guard and the saw blade. But overall, it cut this plywood cross grain. This is sanded birch, regular sanded birch. Cut it clean, nice. Cutting through this 2-inch, almost 2-inch thick piece of walnut, plenty of power. I had zero issues with power here. I think it's equally as powerful as the Milwaukee, the Makita, or the Festool. We're talking top of the line track saw here as far as power goes. Dust collection was pretty good. I thought it did well. And as far as cut accuracy goes, After I finished the cut, I checked it and it was slightly out of square, which I thought was maybe just a saw adjustment. Sure enough, I just adjusted the saw, I just used a square up the blade to the base, made the next cut perfectly square. So just make sure you check for square before you use it, which should be standard practice anyway. But I was happy to see that it is able to cut 2 inches thick of walnut with no problem, perfectly accurate. One of the most genius things about this saw that no other saw, as far as I know, has this option. This is the most unique thing I've seen on any cordless tool platform to date. And if it's out there, I've just missed it. But this is an 18-volt battery, and it's running on 18-volt batteries as we've established. But what happens if the battery goes dead? Well, you could charge it, you could buy more batteries. Or, the most genius thing ever, you could just pick up this adapter with it. This has a cord attached to the battery, and you can plug it into the wall, so now you have a corded track saw. This is absolutely genius because a lot of people don't want to fool with the batteries, or they want to have the option of having the cordless maybe in the field, leaving the adapter for the shop, however you want to set that up. But now you have the best of both worlds. Absolutely awesome. And this also works on a lot of their other 18-volt tools, like their router and many others. So you can basically have the best of both worlds here with cordless and corded all in one platform. One thing I find interesting here is with the cord attached adapter, the brake's not activating, so the blade brake doesn't, it spins down slower. If you have a regular battery on there, it puts the brakes on and slows that blade down faster. I don't know why, but it's happening. Not that that's an issue. One thing I had to test was pulling this battery off, putting the adapter kit on. Is it going to give me more power? Yes. Perceivably, it did give me more power. It didn't bog as much. Not that this was boggy, but it was a little bit. But one thing you have to remember, cutting through that big, thick 2-inch walnut was, we have a 42 tooth blade on here, which is meant for sheet goods, plywoods, fine finishing. It's not a ripping blade. If we put a ripping blade on this, I expect it to perform that much better. But overall, I was still very impressed with the power of the battery and this saw cutting through that wood. It is equal to any of the other ones I've used to date, the higher end saws. Now, one drawback to this battery adapter kit is it does have a pretty good sized brick on there that converts that power to make it work. There is ample cord to go from the adapter to the plug-in and then also from the adapter to the saw. So you get plenty of cord there. I didn't have any issues with that here in my little shop, but it is kind of a bulky thing. But I like having that option for these tools. I think everybody should do that, honestly. Now, if you're looking at the Metabo, you're probably also comparing it to some higher end saws, like the Milwaukee or the Festool or the Makita. Which one would you go with, and what are the feature differences here? First and foremost, the Festool still remains my very favorite track saw for one reason, one main reason, and that is that anti-kickback that you get here. It has a mechanism in there that will shut that blade off if you do get a kickback. I also love the depth adjustment on the Festool. I do like it slightly better than the Metabo, although that wouldn't be a deal breaker to me if it wasn't for this anti-kickback. I think the bevel adjustments work better on the Festool. It's a little more refined, get a little better accuracy, I think, as far as getting it set correctly the first time with ease. That's one of the drawbacks of this Metabo is this bevel adjustment. If you're doing a lot of bevel cuts, you probably might want to look at maybe the Milwaukee or the Festool or maybe the Makita. It's just, I don't like these plastic, very plastic knobs, and getting them just set just right it can be done. It's just one of those things that's a little finicky. It's just one of those things that could be better, but it's also not a deal breaker. As far as the depth adjustment goes on these three, they're pretty close to the same. I like the depth adjustment on the Festool. I like the one on the Metabo, and I like the one on the Milwaukee. I think the Milwaukee and Festool might work slightly better, but honestly, it's not much. It's only because of how you have to grab it. Like you can just push and slide on these two where you have to kind of pinch and slide on the Metabo. Not a huge deal breaker, not a big difference at all. One of the things I think the Metabo beats everybody on is that track adjustment. One single knob adjusting both of those sliders back there, absolutely awesome. Dust collection is probably fair on all three of these. Even the Makita was really good. Like all of those are probably going to perform very similarly. You won't have to worry about that. Overall build quality is very similar here as well. I think at this price point for this one, which is about $200, $250 under the Milwaukee as a kit, and then probably $300 under, $350 under the Festool, I think you're getting a solid value here for a higher end saw at this price point. At the time of this filming, it's like $499 just for the saw combo kit without a track. You can pick up a set of PowerTech tracks, fairly inexpensive, or Wind tracks, or whatever tracks you prefer, and then you would have a very solid kit here. I'll link to the ones I would recommend in the description and the pinned comment. Good saw, y'all. That should be on a shirt. Good saw, y'all. What do you think about the battery adapter? Is this going to be enough to push you over the edge to pick this Metabo over the competition? Let me know in the comments which one of these you prefer. If you like this video, you got to check out right there. That's where I tested some cheap to expensive track saws to find out which one was the best for you. Click in the box, get you the big old virtual fist bump.